today at the Museum of Southern History. It's located here on Herschel Street in Jacksonville, Florida. Now, we're going to go inside and take a look around. I didn't know that this place even existed until I spoke with Larry Harrell last week down at Eubank Cemetery, and he was telling me about it. So I thought I'd come down here today and take a look and see what it was all about. Now, they have quite a few original artifacts here and a few reproductions, but for the most part, a lot of this is about as authentic as you can get. Now, up top, there's a bunch of photographs. Some I recognize, some I don't. I recognize General Longstreet there and Kirby Smith. So here is the display case about secession and how it took place. And that happened over actually a relatively short period of time. But slowly but surely, 13 states seceded from the Union. Now, this case over here has a lot of the arms and equipment. They have several of the infields here. They have, looks like a 1861 Navy and not sure whether that's a 1858 or whether that's an 1862 Army model there. But they have several infields of different sizes, probably 54, 58 caliber, I'm assuming. And there in the back we've got a sniper's rifle or a sharpshooter's rifle that's got a scope on it. Now, scopes were relatively new invention at the time of the war between the states, but they did have them and they did use them. And some of those rifles could shoot several hundred yards. Most of them not quite so far. Most shots were made at 100 yards or less to be of any accuracy, but there were some of them that could make shots up to 200 or 300 yards. Now, over here we have a medical case, and there we see some surgical instruments. I see a couple there that are used to remove foreign objects from the body. One of them there looks like a bullet puller. Now, more men probably died through disease and wounds than any other way on both sides during the war between the states. Mostly from infection and shock. And a lot of them just died from disease. Conditions were rather poor at the time, and medical attention, I'll have to say, was still in its infancy and had not progressed to what we have today. Now, back on that back there, you see a bone saw. And over here we see a stethoscope. And even though that serves the same purpose, that's a far cry from the ones we have today. Now, here we have a cabinet that's donated or about Joe Johnston. That's his original revolver. It's got his name on the back of the butt plate. Now, over here, probably one of my favorite generals of all time is General Stonewall Jackson. They actually have a pair of his epaulets here. That's actually an honor just to be standing here with something that Jackson owned and wore. Now, they have several dioramas. This diorama here is the Battle of Shiloh. If I was more knowledgeable, I'd take you through the Battle of Shiloh, but I am not that knowledgeable other than the fact that it took place in April of '62. Over here we have some donated household items from the time. And then next to that, we have some items that belong to Harriet Beecher Stowe. A pair of her glasses and a book. And if you look right there, hopefully you can see it. You can see a photograph of General Kirby Smith and his wife. This display here is what you would see in a typical living room at the time. We've got a porcelain doll back in the corner. Shoes and boots back by the staircase, the spinning wheel. The antebellum dress here in the foreground. Now, that was a small woman or a young lady that wore that dress. That is awful small. They would have been no taller than about 4'10", would probably be about the tallest to get into that dress there. Now, over here I seen something that was interesting. Hopefully y'all can see this, but this is Northeast Florida during the Civil War. You can see Mayport, Fort Clinch, Fernandina, McClenny, Olustee, Callahan. Now, up here in this area is where we've visited quite a bit in our videos in the past. Now, over here, there's some items that soldiers would have carried. We got a shaving kit, a few bottles, some glasses, salt and pepper shakers, some ink wells, and a very nice pipe right there. Now, this tent or shelter here is a reproduction, but it is a authentic reproduction, and it buttons down the top up there. Today they would call that each side of that a shelter half. Each man would carry a part of it, and at night they would put it together and have a two-man tent. Now, over here we have some mannequins. One would be Robert E. Lee, I'm assuming. They're in the foreground. And I'm not sure who that is in back of him. But we have examples here of several of the flags. The one in the back there is from Virginia. The one up in the top left would have been the first national flag of the Confederacy. The one below it, the second, and the one to the right would be the third. Now the one lowest on the back there with the battle flag in the corner was taken out of service because people mistook it for a surrender flag. Also for other reasons. The reason they changed the battle flag over time was the originals, somewhat like the one in that top left-hand corner there, was mistaken on both sides, and they couldn't distinguish it on either side, one flag from another. Here we have a replica of a wool uniform. You know, those had to be hot down here in the South. Have another diorama here. I can only imagine the patience it would take to put a diorama together. Even if you weren't making all the parts for it, it would take a long time just to arrange them. Now up above it we have an original battle flag. That's the flag that most people recognize and associate with the Confederate States. But that flag was only the battle flag. And in most instances, they were just like that one right there. They were square, they were not rectangular. Now, here we have some more items. We've got looks like a cavalry saber there. We have a fiddle, a couple of hats, and a muzzle loading rifle. That actually looks like that would be something that somebody brought from home. That wouldn't have been an issue. That would have been something that they brought from home. We've got a pair of original field glasses down there that most officers carried at the time. Also have a metal canteen in the back there. And this flag would be from the reproduction, of course, from Cedar Run, Manassas' second battle, Harper's Ferry, Sharpsburg, Chancellorsville, and Fredericksburg. This would be a naval uniform here, and everything that went along with that. Now that's a noisemaker right there to get people's attention. We've got a spyglass and a few derringers. That would have been I'm assuming the official China on a naval ship, possibly even from the CSS Alabama. Now, here in the middle, we've got a metal reproduction of the Hunley. Now, the Hunley was one of the first submarines to actually be used. And it had a protruding spear with a keg of powder on the end of it that would be speared into the side of the ship, and then when the submarine retracted, it would come out and be left in the side of the ship. Now, the Hunley did sink. Nobody really knows what happened, but most people think that the concussion from the blast had compromised the hull of the ship. Now, they have recovered the Hunley. I've seen I think it was a National Geographic special on that. This would be another example of a artillery uniform. Another example of what would later become the Bowie knife. Now this would be excuse me. This would be an example of a cavalryman's uniform. Now over here we have a Spencer carbine, several bayonets, bugle, a McClellan saddle, and down here on the bottom we have a Lamat pistol. Now over here we've got several interesting items. This would be a railroad trap. They would take and saw the rail in half, and they would take a sawed-off rifle or pistol, put it down into a keg of powder, and set up twigs as a firing mechanism, that when the tracks or the wheel hit the tracks and went down, it would trigger the pistol or rifle and explode the barrel of powder. That would be a booby trap. Now, this is the pride and joy. Let me get back over here where I can get a good shot of it. This here is the pride and joy of the museum. This is thought to be the first flag that draped the coffin of Abraham Lincoln on his famous train ride that took a long time, going back to Illinois. Every time they would make a stop, the locals would change the flag on the coffin. And this one is believed to be the first flag that draped Lincoln's coffin. Over here, now, we have a small mortar. Never seen one quite that small. But that, if you'll notice, 4 men could carry that and put in position. Even though that's not a huge ball that comes out of the end of that mortar, it could definitely do some damage. But there's a lot of different ordnance here. We have round cannonballs. On the bottom end down there we have actually a fused bomb load that would be a fuse put in to ignite the bomb. Now, this one up here would be the Angel of Mary's Heights. Now, This would be Richard Kirkland. Now, after a battle, both sides were taking pot shots at each other about 200 yards apart. Well, he actually had to go all the way up to a general to ask permission after he had heard the moanings and groanings of both sides out on the field of battle that had fallen. And he went out with many canteens and administered assistance to those who had fallen. Well, here we have an example of Confederate government notes and state notes, everything from $100 bills on down. At that time, the states actually issued a lot of notes on banks that were in their state. They also had what they called tokens. Now, tokens were usually used for local exchange and because there was a shortage of currency. The local establishments would mint their own credits, so to speak, in coin form. And most of them were honored from store to store. And it was a way of making change back in the day. Now, this is a very nice bronze of General William Hardee. Oh, reliable. Got a lot of really neat stuff here in this museum. Not very big, but what they do have is quality. They do have staff here that'll take you around and give you the tour. They also have a library here that if you are here, you can do research either on family members or battles or you name it. They've also got a volume of books that contain every order that was handed down on both sides, Union and Confederate. Also, they've got a volume of books that contains the name of every Confederate that fought in the war. Now, if you belong to their society, not only do you get free admission to the museum, but you're able to check out books as well. I've got another room to the side here with some interesting stuff. That's an old pump organ. And in here they've got miscellaneous books, a lot of them on the Revolution, other topics. Here they've got a lot of arrowheads and other stuff. Also, we've got some stuff from the Cherokees here. And Cherokees actually helped the South. Now that's a picture of Osceola, or Billy Powell. Corn grinding apparatus. So pictures of some of the Seminoles. So like I say, this is well worth the trip. They do ask for a $3 donation to help with the upkeep and maintenance of the building, keep things going. Children are free. If you join their society, of course, you can come as much as you want and do as much research and check out books if you want to. So, with that, once again, I'm going to leave it with you. And look at the Confederate battle flag. As I tell you again, I appreciate your time, your little visits we have together, and ask you to like, subscribe, comment. I appreciate you. Y'all have a great day, and God bless you.